Alright, let's talk about Andrew Tate for a minute. The guy was charged with human trafficking and rape, had millions in cars seized, and yet, here we are. He's still posting daily from a penthouse balcony, still captivating an audience. How does someone bounce back or even just keep going after a scandal that, by all accounts, should have completely erased him from the internet forever? It's a wild ride, and it tells us a lot about how attention, outrage, and algorithms work in our modern world. Just a few years ago, Tate wasn't this globally recognized polarizing figure. He was a kickboxing champion, sure, a 4-time world title holder, but his public persona was still nascent. Then he pivoted, and suddenly he was everywhere, especially on TikTok, dishing out these incredibly viral, often controversial takes on hustle culture and masculinity. He had a knack for simplifying complex ideas into catchy sound bites. Clip after clip of him saying things like "escape the matrix" or "focus on your purpose" hit TikTok's algorithm like a double shot of espresso, instantly captivating a young, impressionable audience. By mid-2022, his online presence had exploded. He was officially the most Googled man on the planet, a title few achieve. He wasn't shy about his success either, constantly bragging about his fleet of 33 supercars, claiming 100 million views a month across platforms, and openly discussing a webcam empire he alleged was pulling in 400 grand a week. Kids in high school cafeterias were quoting his lines more often than their actual teachers. Whether you loved him or absolutely couldn't stand him, you couldn't deny the guy had built a digital army, a loyal following bigger and arguably more engaged than the viewership of most traditional cable news shows. He understood how to command attention, and he did it with an unapologetic, in-your-face style that was impossible to ignore. Then came the dramatic turn. April 2022. It wasn't a slow unraveling, it was a sudden, jarring crash. Romanian DI-COT units, the country's organized crime and terrorism investigators, executed a dramatic raid, ramming through the gates of his lavish Bucharest mansion. The allegations were chilling and severe. Prosecutors claimed Tate and his brother Tristan had orchestrated a sophisticated scheme, luring women to Romania using what's infamously known as the lover boy method, essentially feigning romantic interest to exploit them and then forcing them into adult cam work. The initial legal file listed 4 alleged victims, and the police didn't just walk away with paperwork. They seized assets worth millions, including multiple Rolls-Royces, a Bugatti, and crucially, hard drives potentially containing years of chat logs and digital evidence. Overnight, the self-proclaimed king of alpha podcasts and online hustle culture transformed into headline fodder. News outlets screamed, "Trafficking probe, rape charges, seized assets top 10 million." The internet, ever eager for drama, exploded. YouTube commentary channels, many of whom had previously covered his rise, were now confidently predicting he'd rot in prison for 20 years. Twitter, a platform often quick to condemn, celebrated what many saw as his inevitable downfall. For perhaps the first time, the man who had seemed an unstoppable, uncancelable voice in the digital ether suddenly looked, well, very stoppable. The narrative had flipped completely, and it seemed his empire was crumbling. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. From a bare, stark prison cell, Tate released a handwritten letter, a powerful piece of counter-narrative that would become his rallying cry. "The Matrix attacked me because I teach freedom," he wrote. That phrase, "the Matrix," instantly resonated with his existing fan base and provided a ready-made explanation for his predicament. It wasn't about legal culpability, it was about a powerful, unseen system trying to silence a truth-teller. Supporters immediately flooded hashtags, reposting old clips where he'd proclaimed they silenced truth-tellers and other similar sentiments. When Romanian judges extended his pretrial detention to an agonizing 180 days, he doubled down, claiming the state wanted to delete him, to make him disappear because his message was too potent. The narrative he crafted was incredibly simple, yet devastatingly effective, Powerful, shadowy figures hated him because he dared to tell young men to lift weights, to pursue financial independence, and to reject victimhood culture. Whether you bought into it or not, this Matrix slogan offered his followers a convenient, emotionally charged framework to reinterpret every new accusation. It wasn't evidence of wrongdoing, it was evidence of persecution. It wasn't legal facts, it was branding.
And in the digital age, branding, especially when fueled by outrage and a sense of shared injustice, travels infinitely faster and wider than any court documents ever could. It allowed his base to dismiss the serious allegations as mere tools of a larger conspiracy against him. The legal process in Romania, as Tate quickly discovered, can be a labyrinthine affair. Their laws allow prosecutors to keep suspects locked up in pre-trial detention while they meticulously build their case, a practice that can feel like a punishment in itself. Tate's legal team wasn't idle, though. They filed appeal after appeal, arguing vehemently that the evidence against him was thin, circumstantial, and that the witnesses' testimonies were often contradictory. This legal maneuvering played out over months, a slow, grinding battle of motions and countermotions. Finally, in March 2023, after what must have felt like an eternity behind bars, a judge granted a significant victory. The brothers were moved from detention to house arrest. Ankle bracelets were on, sure, a constant physical reminder of their legal entanglement, but they were back in their homes, free to tweet and post all night long, regaining a crucial connection to their audience. Then, in July 2024, another win. Courts ordered the return of 15 of their seized luxury cars, a powerful symbolic gesture, stating that prosecutors had failed to prove a direct link between these specific assets and the alleged trafficking activities. But just when it seemed like the tide might be turning, August hit with a fresh wave of legal challenges. A new, expanded charge sheet dropped, significantly escalating the gravity of the situation. It included allegations of trafficking of minors, sex with a 17-year-old, money laundering through intricate Dubai crypto wallets, and even witness tampering via encrypted Signal voice notes. The victim count jumped dramatically to 35. The headline roller coaster started all over again. Yet through it all, Tate kept posting. From his living room gym, he continued to share workout videos, philosophical musings, and defiant messages. His legal playbook was clear: stall, appeal, reframe the narrative at every turn. His public playbook was even simpler: never, ever admit doubt, never show weakness. So why does any of this work? Why does his audience stick around? Ask a 16-year-old why he still follows Andrew Tate, and you'll often get a remarkably consistent answer. He says what my teachers ban. It's that simple. He articulates thoughts and opinions, often provocative, sometimes offensive, that are considered taboo in mainstream educational or social settings. Algorithms, those powerful, invisible gatekeepers of our digital world, are designed to reward engagement, and nothing generates rebellious clicks quite like controversy. Even after TikTok, under immense pressure, officially banned his accounts and attempted to scrub his content, fan pages proved resilient. They'd simply stitch his takes with unrelated gameplay footage or ironic memes, cleverly sneaking past moderation and ensuring his message continued to propagate. The scandal itself, far from being a deterrent, became content. Free Top G merchandise sold out, turning his legal plight into a profitable brand extension. While mainstream brands and advertisers might have vanished, his alternative revenue streams absolutely rocketed. He launched exclusive, paid email newsletters, private war room memberships costing upwards of $8,000 a year, and even revived his webcam studios. The takeaway here is stark. Controversy, for Tate, didn't tank his empire, it refined it. It narrowed the funnel, filtering out the casual observers and leaving him with an even more dedicated, harder-core base of buyers and believers who were willing to pay a premium for access to his unvarnished perspective. In a move that surprised many, September 2024 saw Tate go on the offensive. he filed a civil lawsuit in Kansas against one of his accusers, alleging that her statements had caused massive reputational damage to his brand and demanding a staggering $5 million, along with a public retraction. Legal experts were quick to label this as a classic slap-style pressure tactic, a strategic lawsuit against public participation designed to silence critics through the threat of costly litigation.
His supporters, however, framed it entirely differently. For them, it was an act of justice, a powerful demonstration of him fighting back against what they perceived as false accusations. This aggressive countermove was brilliant in its strategic simplicity. It kept the story firmly within his narrative frame, "I'm fighting back." It wasn't about him being on the defensive anymore, it was about him being the aggressor, pursuing those who had allegedly wronged him. Whether the case ultimately wins, gets dismissed on jurisdictional grounds, or simply drags on indefinitely, the headline, for all intents and purposes, has already been printed: Tate strikes back. For someone whose entire business model relies on selling a persona of strength, dominance, and unapologetic aggression, the optics of such a counterattack matter infinitely more than the actual legal verdict. It reinforces the image he projects to his followers, proving that he walks the talk. So what's the blueprint for this kind of comeback? It's a multi-pronged strategy. Step 1. Control the content pipeline. Tate shifted much of his output to platforms like Rumble, where he could host daily 2-hour live streams without fear of deplatforming. These live streams often outperform many traditional cable news shows in terms of live viewership. Step 2. Weaponize updates. Every single court date, every legal development is immediately spun and live reacted to, often coinciding with a fresh Matrix merch drop or a new promotional push. The legal drama isn't a distraction, it's a marketing opportunity. Step 3. Coalition building. He actively seeks out interviews and appearances with fringe political candidates and commentators, allowing him to position himself as a free speech martyr, someone persecuted for daring to speak his mind, thus broadening his appeal beyond just the hustle culture crowd. Step 4, and perhaps the most insidious, normalization by volume. If you post non-stop, relentlessly for 2 years straight, the initial shock and outrage surrounding the scandal eventually become background noise. Our brains are hardwired with recency bias. We tend to focus on what's new, what's happening today. Yesterday's indictment, yesterday's damning allegations simply scroll off the feed, replaced by fresh takes on coffee, cigars, crypto, or whatever else he's discussing. The sheer volume of content, even if mundane, drowns out the past, making the scandal feel less immediate, less relevant to his current persona. Psychologists have some fascinating insights into why this strategy is so effective. One concept is moral licensing. It's the idea that doing something good or surviving something bad can, in a twisted way, give someone psychological permission to act unethically later. Or, more relevantly here, it can build a perverse kind of credibility. If he survived this, then he must be resilient, perhaps even righteous. Add a persecution complex into the mix, and his followers start to feel like they're part of an exclusive secret club, privy to a truth that the mainstream media, or the Matrix, is trying to suppress. The bigger the establishment pushes back against him, the more loyal and entrenched his base becomes. It's not about logic or empirical evidence, it's about identity. Following Tate becomes a statement, a way to signal defiance against perceived societal norms. Tate doesn't necessarily need the public to believe he's innocent in the legal sense. What he needs is for them to doubt the process itself, to question the motives of the authorities, the validity of the justice system. Doubt buys time, and in the fast-paced, attention-driven world of social media, time allows algorithms to forgive everything, to push past the old controversies and highlight new, engaging content. As late 2024 rolls around, the courts in Romania are still debating whether the original case can even proceed to trial. It's bogged down in a mire of paperwork errors, complex translation disputes, and constitutional motions, each a potential roadblock to justice.
Prosecutors, for their part, insist that the conviction odds still sit above 50%, maintaining confidence in their evidence. Tate, predictably, insists the entire file is empty air, a baseless fabrication. Meanwhile, ever the entrepreneur, he's already planning a 2025 speaking tour across Eastern Europe. A clear sign that he views his legal troubles not as an impediment, but as part of his ongoing narrative. His house arrest could stretch on for another year, or it could lift tomorrow. The uncertainty is a constant undercurrent. The scandal that, by all conventional wisdom, should have ended his career, has instead morphed into a season finale that never quite concludes. An ongoing saga that keeps viewers, supporters, and detractors alike glued to their screens, waiting for the next episode, the next twist in his extraordinary and deeply unsettling story.
So, how did Andrew Tate survive? He did it by treating criminal charges and severe allegations not as career-ending disasters, but as content drops. He learned to reframe the narrative at lightning speed, monetize the controversy even faster, and, crucially, never ever show a hint of retreat or self-doubt. Whether the courts eventually lock him up for good or he manages to slide through on procedural faults, his blueprint for navigating and profiting from extreme scandal is now public. In a world where attention is the ultimate currency, a major scandal isn't necessarily a wall that stops you dead in your tracks. Often, it's a door, albeit a dark and controversial one, that leads to an even more dedicated, if smaller, audience. And as long as platforms continue to reward outrage and engagement above all else, this playbook, as uncomfortable as it might be to admit, remains incredibly profitable. So here's the uncomfortable question we're left with. Did Tate truly hack the system, bending it to his will, or did the system, with its insatiable hunger for clicks and controversy, simply reward him for being exactly who he is? Drop your take below, and if you want a deeper dive into how algorithms inadvertently protect and amplify controversy, make sure to check out the next video.